Hi, everyone, and welcome to the monthly Contour community meeting. We are here every third Tuesday of the month, so super happy to have you all here. We have a pretty packed agenda today. So yeah, we're going to talk about Contour 101. We're going to talk about Knative. We've got a bunch of things to go through. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see the agenda, and then yeah, let's go from there. All right, James, you wanted to say a few words? If you're speaking, James, you're on mute. All right, seems like James is having issues with his mic. Does anyone else want to talk about Contour 1.1?
Dave and Nick are in a conference room though.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Dave. Hey, Nick. I see you now. Awesome.
Yep. I don't know where the microphone is, but welcome to our lounge room. I think it's on the connect like thing up there. All right. I probably can't talk to it because I was on leave for most of this. Is Steve there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can talk to it. Yeah, so Contour 1.1's out, so that's cool. It's our first release after our full 1.0 release. So now we supported Envoy 1.12.2 in the 1.0.1 release, but this carries forward as well. So if you didn't grab the patch release for the Envoy CVE fixes, now's a good time to do that when you upgrade to 1.1. We just saw last night 1.13 got released, so we opened some issues around that to see about the 1.2 release and getting support for Envoy 1.13. So also in 1.1 we brought back prefix rewrite support. So this was a feature of ingress route that we had. We did a couple of rethoughts and redesigns around how we wanted to implement it in the spec. So it left support in the 1.0 release of Contour, but this is now back. And this, along with the tool that Nick helped write, the IR2 proxy, that gives us enough now to fully migrate away from ingress route. So if you haven't looked at HTTP proxy yet or looked at that new spec, it's a good way to dig in now and migrate from one to the other. So to be clear now, I think we're feature complete of ingress route to proxy. And this new tool now that Jonas is bringing up will help you actually migrate. Nick, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this, how this works or functions or anything.
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple tool. It's just intended to run, takes one YAML at a time and outputs one that has an ingress route in it, and then outputs one HTTP proxy. It can handle 80 to 90% of the standard stuff. If it can't understand what you need it to do, it'll warn you both on standard out and in a comment in the file. So if you are generating all the files with some sort of bash script or something like that, then you can just output them to a directory and you can be confident that you won't lose all those comments. One of the big ones is that for delegation you can't, that was James's idea, nice one James. For delegation, if you are doing converting an ingress route that is not the root ingress route, and there's only one route in there, then there's no way to determine what the prefix should be because the prefix behavior is done. If you scroll down a bit further, Jonas, there's a caveats thing section at the bottom. Yeah, so there's 3 caveats mainly, but yeah, and those are all the error conditions you might get or warning conditions you might get in your file. Yeah, and if you find anything else that doesn't work, then please log an issue there. And if I don't see it, ping me, and I will solve it.
Talk to us in Slack. Yep. Log an issue here. The verification that underlies this is, if you look in the code, is just a bunch of inputs and outputs. So if you come up with a case we're not handling well, we can turn that into a test case and get that fixed straight away. Yep. The other thing to note is this is in a separate repo, so we're not tied to the kind of cadence of Contour. So we can turn around these fixes very, very quickly.
Yep, and we can do releases really easily and have that release available.
And it's in Yeah,
It's available on Homebrew for install. You can just, at the top, you can see under installation, there's a brew tab available, and then you can just brew install IRT proxy and upgrade it with brew upgrade.
Thank you very much to Go Releaser.
Yeah, that is ace.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Any
Thanks. Yeah, I think that.
Michael, did you want to talk a little bit about? I know that in the past I've given some incorrect dates about when we want to roll ingress route off. Would you
Absolutely.
Like I can talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what very likely we will completely deprecate ingress route at the next release of Contour after June 2020. So in about close to 6 months from now, whatever the next release of Contour will be after that, that one we will completely deprecate it. So if folks are having ingress route today, start looking into IR2 proxy to convert them, and know that the window of them being supported in Contour is closing in very soon. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. I just wanted to call that out because in the past I'd given some quite cavalier statements of January 1st going to get rid of it. Let's just put that down to naivety. And so yeah, the window is the next 6 months. Like whatever the release lands around the June timeframe, that'll be the last one that supports ingress route. But maybe the not very subtle subtext here is really we'll move on to HTTP proxy. That's where all the action is.
Indeed.
Okay. Any questions?
And I guess the one, sorry, Dave. The one more thing to add to that is, we're not deprecating just because we can, right? There's a very high cost of both maintenance as well as testing and validation to keep the older APIs around. And we would think that it's a much better use of our time and effort to move forward, make forward progress into the new HTTP proxy API, which is why we're giving a timeline of complete deprecation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely right. And we'll be talking a little bit more about like where we're going to be taking that bandwidth for, like, if you think of things that are being deprecated as investment, where we're going to reinvest that later, a little bit lower down the agenda. I will spend a nanosecond talking about the work that I did for 1.1, which was a bunch of edge cases around TCP proxy validation and around its interaction. There are some subtle edge cases. TCP proxy mode effectively means that HTTP port 80 and port 443 aren't linked in the way that we might think of them when they're both in HTTP mode. And there are a bunch of edge cases which, if you've not seen them, you don't need to worry about them, especially because they're all fixed. So that was a bunch of fix-up work that I recall doing in 1.1. And is James back on the line? He could talk about, or Steve, talk about the header rewrites. Or Matt?
Yeah, I'm back. So Steve Sloker actually implemented header rewrite for the host header. So the reason for host header rewrite specifically is for proxying to external name resources. So if you want to expose an external name, so a HTTP destination which is outside the cluster, you might need to rewrite the host header so that service will accept your requests. So that was one of the initial use cases for header rewriting. The other use case for header rewriting was Knative support, which Matt will talk about a little later. So at the moment, you can set headers on the incoming HTTP request. So there's probably a lot of other use cases for manipulating headers. So I don't think we have specific plans to implement all of those yet, but we should raise issues and kind of schedule the completion of the different kinds of header rewrite cases.
Cool. Well, now comes the much more exciting bit, because we have people from the community who very lovely reached out and said, we would like to talk. Can we have some time on on the community call to talk about these things? And the answer is always yes, you can. So, Taro, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
So I don't want to take too much time, but I did prepare this some slides for this, and maybe we can walk through a couple of those at least.
Sarah, do you want to share your screen with the slides so you can talk to them?
Yeah, I can do that. Yes.
Right.
Let me see.
We look forward to some more on video. We really do.
Perfect.
Do you see the slides?
Yep.
Good. So yeah, I think that probably at least most of you are familiar with the problem. So it is this exactly this XDS interface between Contour and Envoy, which does not support currently the rotation of certificates without having a traffic impact, and there is no automation for rotation of the certificates either. So there's two problems here. And when I went through and studied a little bit about the problem, here are the goals that I could find so far. So the certificate and key distribution, meaning how to get the updated certificates to Contour and Envoy, then hot reloading, how to take them into use without any traffic impact, and then periodic certificate and key generation, so how to automatically rotate before they expire. For the certificate and key distribution, I've listed here a proposal, which is actually something that we've used ourselves in our environment for a different purpose. So rely on automatic updating of mounted secrets. So when somebody writes a secret or updates a secret, there will be an automatic update. Kubelet will write out the files to the volume mount. And of course, this is an existing functionality. There is no impact in the users of certificates and keys. There is a one minus point here, that update of the contents of the secret is not immediate. There is a delay. Kubelet sync period, which is 1 minute, and time to live of cache, which is also 1 minute. Generally, this should not be a problem because typically the validity period of old and new certificates are overlapping so much more that it's not a time critical thing to take the new certificates into use immediately. Then the hot reloading part, first Contour. So what I found, and I would like to ask your opinion, that in Go 1.8 and later, there is a method for dynamically generating or creating the config, TLS config structure when the client hello is sent by the client. So you can lazily load the certificates and keys at the time when a client connects or establishes the TLS connection towards the server. So this will be a really minimal change, that there is not much impact other than just moving the loading of certificate and key into this hook function. And on cons side, there is a small impact then on the overhead of the performing the TLS handshake, because the loading of the certificate and key is happening at the time of connection establishment. But since this is not a high performance use case, I would assume that this would work well with Envoy. Envoys not being that many, that and the connection establishment not being that frequent. Another thing that I could imagine is that lazily loading the files, the configuration errors are of course then not that easy to notice because it does not happen at the very beginning of starting the server. But of course we can then load the certificate and key at the very beginning in order to catch the configuration errors, and then again later overriding the certificate and key that was loaded at the very beginning. I wonder, does anyone here have any experience in this or any opinions from your point?
What is the, like, Contour is not part of the data handling path. What is the alternate cost of just changing the certificate and reloading Contour?
Yeah, it's of course okay. There shouldn't be any kind of problem in that either. And actually, we've used as a temporary workaround ourselves. We have this kind of external restarter process that kills Contour instances and it starts again, and there is no impact, of course, in Envoy forwarding traffic during that period. But what I see that this would be, in my opinion, this would be actually simpler and in my opinion, more elegant way, because we do not need to poll or set up iNotify watches to notice when the certificate and key has been rotated. This would be automatic from that point of view, because it would just use whatever is in the file system at the point of connection establishment. So that's the reason why I would say this is better than restarting or bringing down the TLS connection or the socket and creating it again. That's my reasoning.
Hey Tara, it's James here. On the Contour side, do we even need to do a lazy loading? Because Contour is going to validate that it receives a client certificate that's valid according to its custom Contour CA, and
Right.
it's not expired. So it doesn't. Contour isn't checking for a specific certificate by hash or anything like that. So
no.
It seems like unless we're planning to also rotate the CA certificate, then
Yeah.
We shouldn't need to do any additional runtime configuration reloading.
Yeah, for the CA certificate, that is exactly true, and I also have a later slide about maybe skipping the CA rotation completely. So then there would be only a single CA certificate that can be loaded from the very beginning, and it wouldn't impact that. But on the other hand, Envoy is checking the Contour server certificate, and this is targeting for that. So when the Contour server certificate is rotated, it also has a lifetime. So that needs to be reloaded anyway, because otherwise Envoy's validation when it connects to the server would fail.
Okay, I'd like to step back a little bit and step away from the implementation and talk about the requirements, the use cases. Obviously, the main one is the certificate lives for a year, and so a year later, we're all dead, someone else has taken our jobs, they get surprised the certificate expires. So the goal is to implement frequent rotation of certificates signed by what we're going to assume for the purpose of this argument to be a fixed CA. Does that seem fair?
There is, of course, there is CA certificates, and then there is server certificate and client certificate. When it comes to the CA certificate, that is quite often, and I also have added some references here. To, for example, in Istio, they are issuing by default a 10-year CA certificate. The same is true if you set up a Kubernetes cluster with kubeadmin, and then that wouldn't be a problem. That doesn't need to be rotated there is no problem in reloading that because it will last 10 years. Then, of course, when we have a server certificate at the Contour end and then client certificate at Envoy end, those are the ones that would be typically, of course, then much shorter life cycle. And now it's 1 year. In case of Istio, they are using 90 days by default. As a reference in our environment, we are using much shorter certificates for our systems counted in hours. And anyway, one year or 1 hour, it still is something that there should be then a mechanism in order to generate these certificates before they expire, and of course then reloading. And then these steps that
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear statements that have the word "and" in them, my design brain wants to split those two parts apart. So there's the reloading part, which I think we're talking about now, and key generation, which let's be very, very clear. The search gen that we included with Contour gets people started. So it is not intended to be a full feature thing. Like really, if your environment has cares that deeply, especially sounds like you rotate your keys very often, you've probably got your own CA and your own generation system.
Yeah, and when it comes to that, from my perspective, from my interest is mostly in these two first goals that I listed here. So it is purely about the mechanism that how we deliver the updated certificates and keys to this server and client, Contour and Envoy, and then how they take them into use without having any kind of traffic interruption. And then there is a completely separate issue, like you say, how these certificates get generated. Is it the search gen, or is it something completely different? And that is the number 3 here. Yeah.
Would you say it's fair to say that you've kind of got a sub goal for number 2 of the timescale that you want this to be able to support is hours, not days or months? Do you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I believe so, that it is good approach in this kind of, when you have a fully automated system, you can aim for that to have hours.
Yeah, and so that then is why you've investigated looking at sort of auto rotating solutions for Contour rather than having something that needs to restart, because if you're doing it every hour or two, you probably don't want Contour restarts that frequently.
And that is not only the problem. Let's say that is not only the reason for this proposal for hot reloading and not restarting. The like I mentioned, that how it works with this feature introduced in the TLS stack of Go 1.8 and forward. It seems so elegant that you can do this more easily than setting up a monitoring for file changes and then kicking off a restart from that. So that is why I propose this for Contour. It is easier. It is like let's say I tried this out, and it is something like let's say 10 lines change in the code.
Yeah. So this looks like a good solution to put into words the concerns that I think some people around this call are having, is that how do we test this? The current behavior, which is it reads the certificate on startup and never reads it again, is very easy to know that works. This will have a testing cost. It's unknown. Could be small, could be big. That's why we're all sitting on the edge.
Yeah.
And to maybe divert the point, reloading certificates from code that we write and we control, it's easy. How are we going to do it for Envoy?
Yeah, so I mean that's his next slide. I did pre-look at the slides, Tero, so that I could see. But so I think maybe we should leave the discussion of the Contour one until we've had this one.
Okay.
So, yeah, Tero, go.
Yeah. So from the Envoy perspective, then I created an issue for Envoy, and firstly, again, I bumped into their hot restart feature or hot restart procedure, which is something they implemented and something that is still uses for certificate rotation purposes. But then after chatting in this issue, they suggested that instead of that, Envoy could support hot reloading certificates for this XDS connection as a built-in feature. And they have a support for SDS with file system subscription. So in the Bootstrap configuration, instead of directly pointing at the certificate and key file, you can create this SDS config with a path. And the path would then contain these resources, which are the actual data structures that normally would be sent through SDS. Here we then point out the certificate files as paths. And what is then imagined to happen is that we will have the certificate and key files mounted in a secret volume mount. Somebody comes and updates the secret. Kubelet will have this syncing and the TTL cache propagation delay. After 1 or 2 minutes, it will write the new contents of the files into the file system. Envoy has, because of this SDS file system subscription, Envoy has set up iNotify watches, and it should get notified. And it already has the logic, as you know, when you update via the XDS interface the certificates and keys for the data plane. It already has the capability of reloading and taking the new certificate and key into use in an existing TLS context.
Yep, that looks great.
Yeah.
We can change Contour Bootstrap to like this. This kind of intermediary YAML that we need to emit. We can change Bootstrap to do that. So all the files are present. It will mean that Bootstrap will block on secret generation. That'll be new, but that's probably not the worst thing in the world.
That's excellent. Yeah.
And so this implementation is similar to the one that I was thinking of, which again is to use SDS. But given that right now there is no way to use SDS with local file, basically use SDS over a Unix domain socket to basically a sidecar running, and the sidecar is the thing that does exactly this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think having it in process is much neater.
Of course, yeah. If we can get Envoy to do that upstream, that's going to make it easier for everybody. Because
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, I love this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
No argument there.
So the flow here would be you update the secret. The same secret is used for there's 2 separate secrets, one for Contour, one for Envoy. When you update those secrets, you're probably going to update them about the same time. So there is a slight risk of a race condition there between Contour having its cert updated, and this is also why you need the auto reloading of Contour, because if Envoy,
there's no race there.
The
certificates do not know anything about each other. All they do is verify, am I signed by the same parent?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So Envoy does verify that the subject name is correct, but that'll be straightforward. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yep.
Yeah. And one small thing is that this actually doesn't work like this currently, but the investigation is ongoing, and it seems that there is motivation on both ends for me and also for Envoy to make it work like this.
Okay. So the intermediary is that we can use this called an SDS sidecar that basically bootstraps this. It does what is in text there in a little sidecar program.
So I think the thing that Tero hit his light under a bushel a little bit there. That issue is Tero's issue, and he has PRs up with Envoy to do this already. So
if we get it in 1.14, problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you push that in, man, anytime you push that in, then like we will happily make the bit, or you can make them if you want. Like PRs accepted. You know, then all we need to do is change or we being Contour need to do is change the Bootstrap config generation to generate the extra secret files to reference those certs, and Yeah, Robert is your father's brother, as they say. Yeah.
But Taro, on the Envoy side, Envoy will follow this SDS config and pick up the certificates at startup. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. But there is also a logic already there that it creates these iNotify watches. What is missing now that it creates the iNotify watches for these files and not the referred certificate files.
Right. So what I'm getting at is if we move to this new kind of bootstrap, that will be equivalent. That will give us the same feature set that we have today for certificates. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
So in order for the iNotify watch to work, the TLS secret and validation secret need to be updated. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And of course there is also one thing that I was experimenting, that if I put there is a details in the ticket that how it works today, that I can get this to work, for example, by sharing the directory so that the TLS secret YAML and validation secret YAML are in the same directory as the certificates and keys. Then the iNotify watch mechanism in this SDS file system subscription works. But,
yeah.
But
okay.
Practically
that means that they'll be in the same secret.
Yeah, and one thing is that, as like I said, that today this already works for the initial loading, and the watch mechanism is something that currently doesn't work. So the bootstrap configuration could as well be changed today into this, and it would have exactly the same functionality as we have today, but it wouldn't be able to reload.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that straight away, because and reduce the window to just down to Envoy needs to learn to watch this file and reload it. Yeah, but we can do what's on that screen today. Yes.
Yeah. Good.
We should, I think.
Great.
Thumbs up.
Great.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah. Then I had one last slide. So this is now the item number 3, the periodic certificate and key generation. And here I just list some ideas. As I mentioned, in my environment, we are not using searchgen because we have Vault and we generate our own certificates. So this is not my like primary interest, but I listed here some items that could be discussed. So firstly, of course, there is this problem that we need to decide that how to regenerate the certificates. That is it so that we would have, for example, a cron job or a new pod that would be constantly running and having an internal timer and checking the remaining validity times. Then second thing that I can imagine is that the root CA currently is discarded after the initial creation of the certificates, and now when there needs to be regenerated certificates.
I take full blame for that. I told Nick explicitly never write that down. Throw it away.
Yeah, that's of course it was really like sensible approach at that point, absolutely. And now of course when this functionality changes, it makes it a different use case. Then of course these validity periods need to be set, defaults for end entity certificates, meaning the Envoy and Contour certificates, and for the root certificate. And of course it should then be decided that should that be configurable or fixed, and it needs to be decided whether the root CI certificate also is rotated, or should that be scoped out and have that long-lived. Rotating root CA certificate is usually a little bit more difficult problem, and usually there is an overlap that all the new root CA certificates would need to be trusted or loaded at the trust store simultaneously. But on the other hand, since this is a small environment with only known end entities, maybe it could be solved a little bit easier by just reloading or recreating everything. In that case, it wouldn't be necessary to even store root CA key, but it would be a little bit unconventional approach. And then maybe define migration steps, if any, when going from the current solution to the new one.
Yeah, I think that's awesome work, man. I actually think that building that ourselves is silly when there's when Cert Manager is a thing. Cert Manager can issue self-signed certs. If Contour and Envoy support automated rotation of the certs that are stored in secrets without us needing to do anything, then there's no reason not to just say, hey, let's set up Cert Manager. Contour requires Cert Manager. Cert Manager will generate self-signed certificates and manage it for you, rotate them for you, have a 10-year CA, and we call it a day. And that will handle most, like 80% of people's use cases who don't have Vault. I agree that if you have Vault, then the original idea behind CertGen was this is to get you set up and running, and if you really want to run this in prod, you're going to be running Vault or something similar. And so, yeah, I think
because we wanted to move to split deployment, so Envoys and Contours running in separate pods, so we needed to have that traffic secure as the default rather than something you opt into with the previous deployment models we had, and so we needed a solution that would generate the keys with a reasonable length so that people could get going with that. I agree with Nick that Contour should not be getting into the certificate generation game. We should not be re-implementing Vault or Cert Manager, and this is great work, but honestly we should channel that into writing a document for, if you don't want to use the thing that we provide, here's Vault, here's Cert Manager, and instead put our efforts into making sure that both parts of our component, Envoy and Contour, as soon as you change those certificates, they reload. That's what we should be putting our effort.
So I have a question. So I believe it was Nick that just spoke a second ago and said that self-signed certs are going to basically they're good for a huge percentage of our use cases. Is that really true? Are people
in this case having self-signed certs is actually desirable because if you use a publicly signed cert, then because we don't verify, we only have one side verify anything about the certificate other than that it's a valid certificate. If you have use a public CA, then anybody could get that anybody with a valid client certificate from any trusted route would be able to connect to Envoy and pull anything out of it. And so
anything signed by VeriSign can connect to this thing.
Yeah.
To implement the functionality we have here, you have to get a intermediary CA, which is quite an expensive proposition.
Yeah, there's nothing gained over using a thing. In this case, having a self-signed cert, although usually it's not a good idea, is actually a security win because the whole point of this is to make it obscure, to make it not easily readable. And so in order to pop the communication between Contour and Envoy, you need to get access to to either the certain key of client of Envoy or Contour, or the CA certificate and key to be able to issue yourself a new cert. And that's the other reason why we never put the root CA key in the cluster, is because if the root CA key is in the cluster, there is actually no way other than getting access to the Contour and Envoy key pairs to be able to snoop on that traffic. Maybe that's over engineering a little bit, but I think that the risk of using a publicly signed one is actually a lot greater than using a self-signed one in this case.
There is also a real practical problem that normally DLS client and I believe Envoy will do also validation of the subject alternative name in the server certificate, which should be the DNS name, the host name of the server. So you couldn't get the publicly trusted certificate with the DNS name of Contour.
Yes.
In practice, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other reason why that is currently hard coded to that name, is because then you can then you can use it in the shortest possible name and it'll all still work. So I guess from my point of view, Tero, I think from what I hear, it's a definite thumbs up on what you're doing with the Envoy reload. Do you want to scroll back to the Contour one? We can talk about that again, given the context of the Envoy one. I see what you're saying. I agree that it it does look like a really nice solution where you don't have to touch anything. But I think that for this to be viable, as Dave says, like there needs to be a good test plan that checks that, checks what happens in the happy path where everything works, and also what does happen in the configuration error case. What happens, like how does Contour just die? What's the best way to handle that case? My opinion would probably be that if there is a config error, this Contour should die. Because then you'll notice that something is wrong. Whereas if you don't, what will happen is that Envoy won't be able to reach Contour. If it fails reaching Contour, Envoy can get itself into a state where it's like, hey, I can't talk to my XDS server, and it's possible for Envoy to get itself into a state where it's like, I can't talk to my XDS server to get updates. Therefore I can't get updates. Therefore I need to be restarted before I can and will accept new changes. That's happened to us before with half-open TCP connections or half-closed TCP connections, and it's something that we really need to be really careful about, is making sure that Envoy can't get itself into a state where it's given up on talking to Contour, because that means that you will lose changes as they roll out, and you'll have to kick Envoy to fix it. So that's why I'm worried about the testing for this. I think the idea itself is awesome. It sounds really cool, and it'd be really neat to have it do this. I just think that we have to be really careful about the testing.
Yeah, I agree, and of course, I mean the same kind of errors could also happen in the case of just loading the certificate and key in the initial start. Of course, the files can be not there or misformatted.
Yeah.
And in that case, I believe it would restart also. It
Yeah.
is calling the check method,
so I guess,
which restarts. Yeah.
I guess it's more that right now we have it so that if it can't get the TLS config, it'll restart. So you'll notice because Contour will crash loop. But in the case of it's just that we need to have tests to assert that if you pass, that the behavior will work the way we think it does if it can't read those files for some reason.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's fine. It's just work, right? Like and it's just if that means whoever works on this just need to ensure that there's good test coverage of this feature specifically, because it's a little not risky really, but risky is not the word, but like it's a little tricky to make 100% sure that you've got it right without tests. The best way to do it is to actually just have tests. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave?
Okay, so wrapping up. On the third slide, which is rotation, the actual rotation of certificates, I'm interpreting the discussion as out of scope. That might just be wishful thinking. But to be more concrete, I don't think that the goal for Contour should be to continue to invest in search gen. It's done. It does as much as it needs to do for the use case we imagined. For more complicated use cases, the answer is not to extend it, it is to use a better tool. Well, Cert Manager. And perhaps that means we actually just remove search gen entirely and just say we use Cert Manager. So my experience in the past is Cert Manager is not the easiest thing to install. Like when I wanted to do a demo, like I wanted to run a demo script of Contour and Cert Manager, installing Contour was one line, installing Cert Manager was the rest of the page. It wasn't really cool to tie our product to their quite lengthy installation process. Maybe that changes in the future. But so I want to put it back to you. Are you okay with me saying that extensions to search gen are out of scope for this proposal? I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to use it.
Yeah. Okay. You addressed that to me. Yeah. For me, it's okay. Because that is really like you say, and I already mentioned I'm using Vault.
So I guess does that mean, Dave, that are we saying that the official response from the current sort of lead person is go ahead with the Envoy thing and work on the Contour side?
Absolutely. The God's honest truth is SearchN had a year's generate certificates for a year's. I figured we had a year to figure out how to fix this problem, and I still think we have some time left. So,
like I was writing some reasoning when we discussed about this default lifetime of the generated certificate from SearchN.
yeah, I remember that discussion. My pushback was not, let's not make them longer, let's make them shorter. Yeah. And if that is painful, we'll figure out why it's painful and fix it. And that's what we're going to do.
But I mean that from the perspective of those users who are using SearchN, I think that it wouldn't be that big problem for those and not really any kind of immediate security issue for them to not have rotation at all. It is then, of course, the more like a production grade environments where you really then think about these problems more, and then you probably want to have something other than SearchN anyways.
That was kind of where our thinking led us to. Like, if you are paying attention to the certificate usage inside your cluster, you're going to be answering this question, not just for Envoy and content, but for every single thing that operates inside your cluster.
Right.
And our little solution that we built for our example is not the right tool for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there good docs on using Cert Manager for this? I haven't gone digging for it, but I'm curious.
Sorry, you kind of dropped out there, Matt. Could you state that again?
Oh, so I was just wondering if you had a good pointer to docs on using Cert Manager to replace the job, because that's kind of something that sounds like something I want to play with.
No, when I was reading the Cert Manager docs a little while ago, I saw that it is possible to do self-signed certs. We would need to write them, but that's doable. So yeah, basically it would just be figuring out how to generate the certificate of the correct certificate object and do all the issuers and stuff that Cert Manager would need to do to end up with those secrets being managed as certificates by Cert Manager.
Okay. Tara, thank you so much for your presentation. I hope we've given you like good next steps. I do just want to, I'm not sure what the time is, but I think we should be moving on. So again, thank you very much for your contribution. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
no problem. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tara. So next up we have Michael, who wants to talk about some interesting stuff happening in CNCF land.
Hi, everybody. So as you guys are aware, we've kind of talked in the past about VMware being willing to open up Contour to governance, to a governance body that's basically more inclusive of everyone and make it available under CNCF in a similar way that Envoy is being governed. Well, that process has already has started. We are in the middle of technical investigations by the different CNCF special interest groups that are chartered to both investigate Contour for compatibility with CNCF, its bylaws, its code of conduct, its versioning history, the way that you produce quality software, and all of those things that come in an engineering project. That work is underway right now. We had our first review last Thursday with the SIG networking group, and the technical oversight committee is already aware of Contour going for graduation. It looks like we're already approved for the sandbox stage in CNCF, and right now we're basically targeting incubation. It looks like probably have more news in about a month's time. That process doesn't really have a timeline to it. I'm just giving you that estimate based on my experience working with CNCF, and then we'll know where Contour stands. But if any of you guys are interested in learning more about the process, seeing where Contour is, or voice your your +1 for Contour graduating, sorry, not graduate, for Contour being donated at the incubation stage, we will send you guys the link when Contour is up for a vote, so you can provide non-binding votes. So we'll really encourage the community and the users of Contour to come and tell their story, why Contour is important to them, how you're using it, and why you think it should incubate and be governed by CNCF. Now I have one more request for you all, and that we actually have an open issue today in Contour that asks users to tell us their use case of, are you using Contour, how you're using it, the impact that it's having in your environment. I want to really encourage everyone to take a few minutes out of their time and go and fill this in. And I'll add a link to that right now in our chat window. But this is a good testimonial of Contour out there. So anyone that's browsing our site will be able to find this. And the more folks that actually fill this in, then we can show evidence of Contour being used out there in the wild, both to the CNCF as well as to other prospective users. So I'm putting that down in the chat window right now. Please, highly encourage, go ahead and go and put a note in that issue. That's it from me, Jonas.
Awesome, thank you, Michael. And I want to be conscious of everyone's time here. We got 5 more minutes of the meeting, so I want to move into a little news update. Yeah, sorry.
Can we pass it to Matt?
That's the plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can wait. It's fine.
Yeah. So Matt, you're up. Talk about Knative.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt. This is my first Contour community call. So hello, everyone. It's good to put faces to folks I've seen on issues in Slack. Today is release day for Knative. We cut our 0.12 release across surveying and eventing and some of the other repos today. One of the things that I came to talk about was in surveying, one of the things we did was we refactored some things on the surveying side to make these kinds of integrations easier, but we also did some work with you all to add support in Contour 1.1 to add some features that we needed to layer our networking abstraction on top of Contour so that you can run with Knative and Contour as opposed to Knative and Istio. Internally, we basically have an ingress-like abstraction, and we use annotation similar to the ingress class in Kubernetes to basically distinguish which implementation of our networking abstraction handles that. And so there's a little controller that basically bridges from that to HTTP proxies. And with a couple of the features in 1.1, we now have enough to basically implement all of the semantics of the that we need in order to pass effectively all of the end-to-end tests in Knative. So yay! So let's see.
Congrats, man! This is awesome, by the way, and thank you for all the work that you did to enable some of the Contour scenarios in Knative. This is awesome.
Thanks for all your help. So right now, there's some preliminary docs that it usually takes a day or two to publish the actual release docs, but there are some docs pages that should be landing on knative.dev shortly that sort of take you through it. Right now, it uses a sort of customized install of Contour because we actually are running 2 Contours, one that's exposed externally and one that's exposed internally so that we can do cluster internal L7 stuff. But I'm hoping to put together some more docs now that it's out there to talk about how you can use it with an existing Contour install or how you might augment your existing Contour install to just use the bits that layer on top of that installation as opposed to using what we're testing against. And I'm going to shut up because we're short on time. Oh, also, I invited Nie to join. He did a lot of the refactoring on the Knative serving side. He's our networking working group lead. And so you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. My first time joining this this call. I'm really excited to see Contour integrated with Knative. It seems to Matt's been driving it to be one of the implementation that's greenest on our test grid. So I'm really happy to see that.
Awesome. Welcome.
So Matt, what about Mink?
Oh, yeah, I can talk about that too. One of the things that I've been playing with, in addition to integrating with Contour, is there's a little proof of concept. So in Knative, we've tried to keep certain integrations sort of at arm's length, and we run different controllers as different deployments to make it easier to exclude functionality that you don't want. And so if you want to exclude, for instance, the Istio integration, you just drop that deployment and a few other things that are labeled, and you can install the Contour integration. But you end up with sort of a sprawl of components that are running on your cluster. So Mink was sort of a proof of concept. We write controllers in a slightly non-traditional way, and it's set up in a way that it's really easy to sort of
we all do it.
link a whole bunch of different reconcilers together into different processes if you want to package it all together. So Mink is basically a glorified bash script that rewrites the configs vendoring in the other repos, and a single Go file that basically links together all of the controllers that it makes some sort of curated, opinionated choices for you. Like for instance, it uses Contour. You can't swap out. Well, Contour will always be installed. You can configure it to use Istio, but that's not sort of included in the box. And so basically what it does is it removes some of the optionality, and it provides basically a YAML that's self-contained, so you can go from just a straight Kubernetes cluster. You install the YAML. That YAML will install Knative, a Contour that runs in the same namespace, and it runs a little job that basically sets up a default domain for you using xip.io, so that once it's done, once that job's run, you have an installation of Knative serving that gives you DNS that works when you deploy a new service and whatnot, and it runs on pretty small footprints right now. I was able to get it was stretching the limits of a single node, single core GKE cluster, but it was able to basically fit. So like GK uses 66% of that core by default. And so it fits sort of on top of that. And then you have a tiny bit left to run a trivial app. But so yeah, overall, it's a pretty small footprint on a small node. And then it's running the envoys and our activator component, which sits on the data path to buffer requests when we've scaled to 0 as a daemon set. So as your cluster grows, that'll scale out nicely and hopefully keep up with traffic. But again, proof of concept, I wouldn't use it in production yet.
Cool.
Hey, I know we're over time, but Michael Payne here. I'll drop one more bombshell for the next call, is when we can discuss UDP support, Dave.
I'm so glad we get to talk about that next time.
We're running a little out of time here. I want to make sure we're conscious of everyone's time. Thank you so much for everyone joining in today. Thank you so much for.
We have 30 seconds before we go, Jonas.
Yes, sure. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So for my thing, I put some notes in the HackMD. Please read those. There is a a branch, proof of concepting some of the stuff. It's just about using having Contour consume the ingress v2 things. It requires some reasonably substantial changes to some of the internals of Contour, which is what I wanted to talk to people about. Please comment on there's a PR that covers some of the design of this. I actually need to update that, but if I could get some comments on that, that would be very much appreciated. That's it.
Awesome, thank you, Nick. And yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining today. This was a really, really awesome call. Congrats again to the Knative team for the new release. Congrats to the Contour team for the 1.1 release. Lots of releases happening. And with that, have an awesome rest of your week, everyone, and see you next month.
Okay.
Take care.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Clive. Bye. Bye.